what we're doing today is I've got a couple of masks that I want to show you. So this is one of the masks, and this is quite a fairly finished mask. So I've even added some trimmings to it to give it a little bit more character. I've made a little wig for it as well. And this is all made out of materials using cardboard, a plastic bag, some flour, some water, some egg cartons there. So what is really exciting, what I've really enjoyed about this project is just trying to find materials which are really available and everywhere. So I found the cardboard outside supermarkets, plastic bags I took from, I said yes to getting a plastic bag from the corner shop, and also to really help with my bulk, so I wasn't worried about running out of materials. I also just asked everyone to leave any cardboard, any cereal boxes, any egg boxes outside of my door in a box which I'd left. So then over the past week I've just been collecting so much cardboard, which is really good, because it means that when I've made countless mistakes, I can just do it again and start again. So to begin with, just going to tell you a little bit about the design process and thinking about characters and some of the questions I ask myself when I'm thinking about making a mask and making a character. So I ask myself things like, how old is this mask going to be? Is it an old character? Is it a young character? And then when I start to think, are they young or old, I then ask, like, is it male, female? And masks can be anything from really intricate and complex to really simple. So there are a couple of mask companies which are working in the UK. So this is called a larval mask, and they're actually originate from France, but as you can see, what I like about them is that they're really simple designs. They're circles, and then here we've got a big nose, a mouth. And what's interesting about them is that you can really create a story from the most simple of masks. This one is extremely simple. Then we've got Vamos masks. They're a theatre company that work within the UK, and they use a very different process where they make a mould and then go from there. I'm just going to show you a couple of my designs and how I start to think about masks and how I start to simplify them down. So here's one. That is how simple they can be. Here's some more creaturey type ones. And because for this mask, I wanted them to have, not completely, but I wanted them to have a bit more of older features. So I started to think about what was important to me when I was making the mask. And I really wanted to make some hooded eyes. I really wanted to do that. So that is the only thing that I said, right, I really want to make a mask with some hooded eyes. And so today we're going to be making a mask with some hooded eyes. And again, just simple patterns. I've then decided, okay, so I need a forehead, which I've then drawn here. I need somewhere for my eyes to go. So here are my eyes. Eye, somewhere for my nose to go. And a mouth type thing. But we're going to break that down even more. First things first. We're going to get a square bit of cardboard. And I've tried to think about how can we make a good shape for a mask. So I've got a big bit of tape here, or any circle will do. And what I'm trying to think about is to be able to cover my face. We've got one circle there, follow it around, a circle there, and a circle there. And then I'm going to move it down, and I'm going to do the same again. One. And that's how roughly I'm measuring my face. So each time it changes a little bit, but that's just like a rough guide. So I'll show you how that is going to look now. So we've got the top of my forehead. And then I'm going to move it over half a bit of sellotape at a time. So there's half. And I'm going to move it half the other way as well. So that, I'm going to say, is roughly my forehead. I'm going to draw a line down the middle so that it becomes symmetrical. And I'm going to draw around the outer layer of that sellotape, like so. I'm now going to move it down. So we've got a whole bit of sellotape underneath. Before I do that, I'm just going to put a line there so I know where I'm working from. And I'm going to do the same again. So there's one there. And now I'm going to move it all the way to the edge, whereas before we were just going halfway. Now I'm going to go one entire one over. And this is because I've worked out that it becomes quite a nice cheek shape, quite a curvy shape. So I'm going to cut out now the outline. This cardboard. Now, what I've discovered about using so many different types of cardboard is that each type of cardboard you get has very different qualities. So for example, this bit of cardboard is really thick. It's got 2 loaves, and this is really good because it means that you can like become quite vigorous with it. Whereas other types of cardboard, like this cereal box, is much thinner, and those different qualities of the cardboard give different things, and we're going to be using a mixture of both. So for my face shape, I've decided that I want quite thick cardboard so that then this gives it a lot of structure. Thing about thick cardboard though, that it becomes quite difficult to cut out. But nevertheless, a good pair of scissors will do the trick. On the other hand, what you can use is also like a knife or a scalpel if you've got either of those at home. Here's one that I cut out earlier. As you can see, mine had a triangle in it and some eyes. So I'm just going to show you how I did those. So if we go back to the original one that I have, where I ended up putting the nose was from the top of that sellotape, that original marking, down to where those 2 circles meet. I found that gives me quite a nice triangular shape where I'm going to be able to put my nose bridge. And similarly, my eyes start from just underneath my nose bridge. If my nose starts there and my eyes take up that much space, and that's what I'm going to draw on my bit of card. So I'm going to draw my eyes starting here. And I can see from the top of the triangle, reaches the top of my eye. This is the halfway mark, and I'm just going to cut out those eyes. And again, you can use some scissors for that, or a knife, or some scalpel, and you end up with a shape like this. You can see my construction lines on the back here. Again, I just used this technique to get my shape. Now, the good thing about, again, like I said, this cardboard is that it becomes really, really robust, and you can give it a squeeze, really get to know the material. Now, something that I should have mentioned before is that the cardboard has a different way to it. This way, it's got lines going downwards, and that's because the way it's been made, it's got lines going down. And I found to make a good curvy shape, what you want is you want those lines running down the face, so that when you come to bend it, it can bend around your face, whereas when you try and bend it the other way, it doesn't really work. So you want the lines running downwards. Now, next thing we do is we need to make a headpiece, and that's what's going to secure our mask to our head once this is all done. So to do that, I got a really big bit of cardboard, and I cut out a long line, and again I made sure, can you see these lines in the light? I've made sure that the lines are all going downwards, and this is so that when I come to bend it, I can really bend it and wrap around itself. And I've decided to use the thicker bit of cardboard for the headpiece as well, because I don't want it to break so easily. But the good thing about cardboard is if it breaks, that's also fine. You can just add a little bit of tape to it, stick it back together again. So there we go. We've got my nice curvy head bit now. Just going to roughly measure my head and then give it a little bit of extra space. And for now, just going to tape those two bits together. I'm not going to put a lot of tape because I might undo it. I'm just going to hold it together for the moment. And it's good to have a circle to begin with, because then when you start to work on your mask, you can start to create the curve straight away. So the next step is a similar technique to what was used in the workshop last week, but I'm going to make a nose. So to make a nose, I've got another bit of cardboard. This one is a bit different type of cardboard, it's thin. And I found, this is from an Amazon package, and I found they do great cardboard when it's from their actual stores. It's quite interesting, you get to know a material. So this one's a thin cardboard, it's very similar to the ones in cereal boxes, and I found this is good because it's very flexible. You can play with it. So to make my nose, I'm going to fold it in half. And similar to what we did last week, I'm going to fold my mask in half as well. I'm going to put my nose inside, with this bit is the bit that I've bent over. And I'm going to decide at what angle do I want my nose. Do I want my nose to be straight out? You know, that becomes more animalistic. But I want my nose to be at a more of a, around 45 degrees, I reckon. So I'm just going to draw a line here. And I'm going to bend along this line. So now we've got a shape like this, and I've just pulled down the top there. So that's gone from my square. I've bent it along the line that I drew, which is there. Now I'm just going to put it inside my face. I'm going to glue along these bits here, and that will give me my basic nose structure. Again, this is very similar to what we did last week, but in a bit I'm going to change the process. So rather than just using folded card, we're actually going to make a glue out of corn flour and paper. We're going to learn and do some paper macheing. So then this will stick down. It's just going to take a little while to stick, but there we have here we have the start of a mask. Like so. Next, I'm going to make my eyebrow. And for this, I'm going to, so this is the stage that we're going to get to just before we start paper macheing. So far we've got this face here with the nose. Now we need to make an eyebrow and a little chin. So to make my eyebrow, I get another bit of card. This time it's fairly thin. This time instead of 2 ply thick, it's only 1. And this is so it has a little bit of a more bend. And I'm going to do an arc here. Get this as a template. And I'm just going to draw around it. I'm also going to add, you see where this comes out at 45 degrees from this corner. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to do the same on this side as well, 45 degrees, and make it a little bit bigger. Then I'm going to cut this shape out. I'm also going to cut out a space for my nose here. But you can start to see that that becomes a little bit 3D. Just to make sure it's a little bit symmetrical, although it doesn't have to be symmetrical. When things aren't symmetrical, it's a nice way to give it a little bit of character. I'm going to just chop out a triangle across there. Now, originally, in my design, I wanted some hooded eyes. So to be able to get those eyes hooded, I'm going to cut out a little bit of a shape along here. One way to do that is to get rid of this excess cardboard. You can do this beforehand with a pair of scissors, but I'm just going to use a scalpel to show you quickly. Now, one way to avoid doing that is to, before you stick it down, just cut around. So because I want these eyes to be slightly hooded, I'm going to put this underneath and I'm going to draw where my eyes are. So these are the top of my eyes, and I want my cardboard to come down across, and that gives it a nice hooded shape. So if we go back to our finished mask, what I'm doing is I'm creating this nice hood which goes along here. This one's been accentuated with the string. So now I've got that shape. I'm going to cut it out. So I've got my forehead there like that. I'm going to round off the edges. So before I stick it down though, just to make it a little bit more 3D, I want rather than it to be flat and have not that much shape, I want to just create a little bit. Can you see the difference? I just want to make a little bit of height. So to make that height, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stick blocks of cardboard underneath, but on top of each eye. So for this, I've got my thick cardboard. This has got the 2 layers. I'm just going to cut strips. Ooh, tough. I'm just going to cut little strips, like so. So there we've got a little platform for our eyebrow. Stick on. Now I have been sticking them on with glue, but just to show you for speed, I'm going to stick them on with sellotape. So I'm just going to stick it down like that. It's not very neat, but at this stage that's okay. Now I'm always thinking about keeping it symmetrical, and that's just so that whatever happens to one side of the face roughly happens to the other side. So I've given it a step there. This is where we'll see that I've put it in the wrong place. Oh no, it's fine. Look at that. And already you've got a bit of a 3-dimensional face going on, rather than it being flat against the cardboard. So now I've got all those shapes, I'm just going to stick them to my head. And again, to do that, I'm just going to stick it with tape. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my head down. I want to position it just above the eyes. Not too high, because then when you put the mask on, it won't sit on your face properly. But so you want it just above your eyes. If you can imagine, it's going to go like that. I want to be able to see out of my eye holes. So that means it goes just above my eye. At this stage, again, it doesn't have to be too neat. Now I'm going to stick my forehead down. But even at that stage, you get to see that you've got that nice profile of a face starting to occur. And then the final bit, just to finish off this face shape, is that I can draw what my chin will look like. So I'm just going to put it underneath like that. It's roughly underneath this bit, but again, it can completely change depending on what you want. And I'm just going to draw the curve of how my chin is going to look. And I'm going to cut that out. And I'm also going to cut out a little smiley face or something here. To do that, I'm just folding it in half. And I'm just going to cut a smiley face like that. Got a nice smiley face. And that is all that I've done to here, is just to put a smiley face in. I'm not going to stick my chin down just yet, because what I've found is that I prefer to stick it down after I've done some paper macheing. So here we've got our basic face, and we're going to add our chin. I'm just going to design my nose. So I'm just going to add a little bit of curviness to my nose here. And I'm going to cut this out. But what we're going to do now is we're actually going to learn a little bit of paper macheing. And when I say learn, paper macheing is quite simple. It's just ripped up paper with glue. And then once you've ripped up paper with glue, you start to stick it all over. And it makes a nice, solid shape. Now this becomes rock hard. And what I've done to make this is I've just used a really simple recipe of corn flour, because I know you can get this in the shops and the supermarkets. It's really cheap, it's biodegradable, it's chemical free. So I've just used corn flour, salt, water, and a pan, which I'm going to heat up and stir some corn flour into the pan. Now I add loads of salt because I don't want it to go off at any point. I don't want my mask to start rotting or disintegrating, or if it gets moist. So I've just added loads of salt. Give it a little bit of a stir. Add in a tiny bit of water. Mix it about. And I want all of the corn flour to dissolve. And you heat it up and you give it a stir so that it helps the corn flour dissolve. And what it looks like, it ends up looking like a little bit like PVA glue actually. And in fact, you can use PVA glue to make paper mache. So I'm just going to show you. At the moment, it looks like milk. But as it starts to heat up, that corn flour will start to dissolve. And the great thing about using corn flour is it doesn't take long. It takes maybe like a minute or two on the hob. And already I can start to see that this corn flour is starting to go a bit lumpy, which is good, because when it goes lumpy, it means that it's starting to go really starchy. Now I don't think I've added enough water to this, so it's going to be really thick glue. In fact, I can show you what it's starting to look like now. It's starting to look a little bit like that. Now I know that this is too thick because it is still quite white. And I want it to be a little bit more see-through, so I'm just going to add a bit more water. Okay, so now the starch is starting to go a little bit more see-through. I'm just going to mix it around, give it a good stir. Now I don't want to burn myself whilst I'm making the paper mache, so don't forget that you've put it on the stove. You need it to be fairly cool. So I've just added some cold water so that I can now use that. So this glue is now ready. I've made it, again, it's slightly thicker than I normally make it, but as you can tell, kind of like gloops off. It's a good consistency. And again, what I found about just experimenting is that different consistencies of glue work for different things. So now I'm going to make my paper mache. Now to do this, you can use all sorts. I experimented with newspaper, and newspaper worked really well. I found some brown paper which was used in some packaging. Somebody gave me a box with some packaging in, that works. I've got some printer paper. My printer paper is yellow because it helps me to see, but this is just average, printer paper. You could use magazines, you can use all sorts, but what you don't want is you don't want anything waxy, because when it becomes waxy, you can't absorb any of the liquid so it doesn't stick. So for this mask, I just used that printer paper. As you can tell, it's rock solid, and that is just from flour and water and printer paper. Now, this is super easy. You just rip paper, but paper has a grain, and that means that in some ways it rips really well, and in other ways it rips not so well. And what you want is long strips, which you can then cut into about that size. And you want loads of these. So again, with my brown paper, that way it rips fairly well. You just want loads of strips of paper that you can then make into shapes about this big. And the reason why that shape is good is because when you're making your paper mache mask, you want to be able to layer it on all in one way and do a whole layer and then the other way. And this is what makes the mask really strong. So if we go back to our mask, we can start to paper mache this base to cool. And remember, I put a little bit of cold water in there as well. So we don't want it to be dripping, but we just want to be able to run our fingers down it. And as you can tell, it's slightly wet and it starts to change the colour of the paper. And I just want to stick this down and fold it. So again, I'm not going to do all my mask to show you because it will get quite long, but just the key areas. So I want to basically attach all my bits of card together. As you can see, the nose is falling out, so maybe I can show you that I'm just going to stick my nose in for now, using this form of glue rather than the Pritt stick, because clearly the Pritt stick didn't work that well. So I'm just going to stick this down, for example. And what I really love about using flour and water is that you can get really messy because it's just flour and it's just water. So you can really start to like get your hands in and spread it all over. Like, you know, don't be afraid of this. Don't be afraid to get super messy. I'm just going to follow my line around and again stick it down. And as I demonstrated, it becomes really, really rock solid. Now, something that's best to remember is if you go in the same direction, so if you go across that way, continue across that way for the whole thing, and then on your next layer, go the opposite direction. And this just adds a little bit of core strength to your material. This one's not completely done, but already I've done over the nose, I've done there. And I've just already stepped down this nose. I'm just going to take it off to show you. So there's my paper mache mask. Here is my card from earlier. Now, the paper mache, once it's wet, it goes a bit soggy. So you want it to leave it to dry, possibly overnight. It might take a couple of days, or sometimes you can speed up the process by putting a dryer on it, but do be careful if you're doing that because you don't want it to burn or get hot air to get too close. But once your paper mache is dried, and you can see I've still got the shape a little bit here. I could have made this one a little bit bigger. But I also want to then add my mouth. Now, for this mask, this mouth is far too big, so I'm going to cut it down, unless that's the look I'm going for, like a long face. But this one I'm going to cut down a little bit. I'm going to stick that to there using a little bit of glue. And there I've got my mask shape. And stick that down with some glue. You can use Pritt Stick, PVA, you can use the glue that we've just made. I'm using a little bit of Pritt Stick. And then you can start to paper mache into that face, same as we've just showed earlier. And you can see that it's got a nice human face shape. So then you can start to add some extra detail to the features. So the detail that I've added to my mask is some eyebrows. You can do some lips. You can do some eyes. So to do any of those techniques, you just build up the cardboard in a similar way to what we've done before. So you can cut out some eyebrows and literally stick them down and then paper mache over them. But this is where it's like quite fun to look around your house and see what materials you've got. So I'm just going to show you the eyes. I've got this sort of egg box, and you can see how they make quite interesting eyes. They've even got some nice rings there. So you could use something like that. Or someone gave me some giant eggs like this. So I'm going to use these as my eyes because I think they look quite interesting. I'm just going to cut out a couple for my eyes. So that's the basic square, and now I'm going to cut out a nice eye shape. And this can sit inside. It becomes my eye. Now this one has not been stuck down yet. So I'm assuming that at some point that's going to pop out. So I'm just going to push in for now. The reason why I'm not sticking it down just yet, I'm just going to draw where my eye holes are. So I'm just going to draw an eye there and an eye here. I think that looks quite cool. But to be able to see through this, you're going to need to put a hole all the way through. And at this point, you can use a pencil to stick it through, or the end of a knife, or the end of a little bamboo stick, or anything really. You can twist it around. You've got to be able to make sure that you can see out them if you're going to wear it as a mask. So just put it on and make sure that you can see. I can see. So next thing is just to stick those in using whatever glue you have at hand. With this mask I did, I added those eyebrows, which I told you about. I've also added a bit of a lip. And I also added some nostrils to give a little bit more shape to my mask. So I can do that on this one as well. So to add some extra shape to things, you can use anything from like a little bit of cardboard, and you can build in, and it's really fun to just play around with what different alternatives you can do. Now, other things that I've noticed were quite fun to work with in the decoration stage, because we're moving on to the decoration stage, because once you've got your paper mache mask, you can really build and sculpt anything that you want to. So I asked people to just send me as much materials as they could. So here I've got some chocolate wrapper. nice chocolate wrapper. Magnum, I had a Magnum, again some nice gold. I also got an old inner tube, and I use inner tubes quite a lot because it's stretchy. You can use it to make your mask headband, and that makes it adjustable so that anyone can use it. Well, the other thing that I've just used it with is to make either some eyebrows or a nice little moustache. So to do that, I just cut out. And again, it's just what materials do you have at home which you can play with. So there's a nice bit of interesting rubbery inner tube. Not cut too much. And cut it down, and you can just make some interesting hair, some eyebrows, and or you could just use felt tips, you know, to colour in a mask and make it the features stand out. Or you can start to collage extra materials down to give it a little bit of character. So another thing that I used is somebody gave me some string. Now I thought this string was quite nice because you can start to add things like wrinkles. You can hide the eyes. Again, it's like playing around with the materials that you can find at home or that you can find on the street, which are fairly easy. So I've added some string to mine and I've coloured it in. And you can colour it in using whatever you want. Hope that you managed to follow this workshop today. And I hope that you've learned something a little bit about paper mache. Paper mache, I've used just some glue, so some corn flour, so it's nice and safe to use. It ends up being a very solid base, and you can play around with that. I'm just going to quickly show you what we're doing next week. So next week what we're going to do is we're going to use a very different technique. So instead of using cardboard, what I'm going to do is we're actually going to be starting from dough. And this is ordinary flour with lots of salt and water. So similar to what we did the paper mache with, but rather than corn flour, it's white flour. But you could use very different types of flour. And this is a great material that you can mould with. You can see my fingers have stayed there. And so we'll make a nice consistency and we'll make a face from this material. Once we've made our face shape, we're going to paper mache it, similar to what we've done today. And then once we've paper mached it, we're going to leave it to dry. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our paper mache off our dough, and you end up with a cast. So we end up with a different type of mask, which we've made initially from dough. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. So we would absolutely love to see your creations. Every time you make a mask, it's completely different, and really would like to see the different materials that you're using, the eventful ways. If you could show us some of those, maybe if you could like post them online on Instagram, anything that you've been making. Maybe you've discovered a new material that you want to show us. Anything really, anything from your creations, your materials, your processes. Would love to see those.